Hi, welcome to Walking the Path. I'm going to be talking to people who are on a spiritual journey, who want to share with us their experiences about what they've found on the journey. So if you're interested in spirituality and how you can embed it into your life, come and walk the path with me. My guest today is Mitchell Wheeler, who's a friend of mine and a friend of the Amethyst Centres. Mitchell, could you tell my audience, please, what you do with yourself?
Yes, I sum that up as me helping bring balance to people in mind, body, and spirit. And usually it's focused on heart-centered living and the connection between being present in the moment and then the qualities of the heart that we would love to have for ourselves as well as others, like compassion, acceptance, and peace. And I'll try to bring people into their own stories almost to see how they can bring more of what it is that they want. And so in terms of services that comes through, you've got yoga, qigong, Pilates. I do mindset coaching and Reiki. I put those together through working at studios and gyms. Have a little treatment room that I work from, and then I also on run retreats, which I finished the first one since the lockdown got released yesterday. So that was good fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's me in a nutshell, I would say.
Okay. So you obviously spent quite some time training to get to where you are. When did you feel that this was the path you wanted to go down? How old were you?
Yeah, so I mean, around 21 was when I realized there was an alternative choice to living life. And that's kind of what led me down the spiritual path because it fundamentally was, another way or no way, because I kind of reached that point, and I think a lot of people do on this journey. I started to go into a meditation group, which then one of the teachers there suggested I went to yoga. So after about 6 months doing yoga, I started having people suggesting I should teach it. When my job decided that the requirement for me was to be employed now, not self-employed, I didn't continue and then put my financial, at the time, all of it into setting up my business. So I think I was about, how did I do that? 20, about 4 years ago, I would say. So I would have been about 24. Mm.
Yeah, I think that's probably when we met, wasn't it? Something like that, not long after anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Did you always have an interest in spiritual matters? Sort of, have you always been that way inclined, so to speak?
I think there's parts of me that during like what I offer now is present, like as in the things that I valued in myself as core values, shall we say. I wouldn't have named them at the time as spiritual because I saw them as morals or more so than virtues, shall we say. But the spiritual practices and understanding that there is a way to live outside of the physical world of going and working and getting a job, and that never existed to me until like I said, at 21, I kind of gave my ultimatum to the universe and was like, give me another way or don't. And that until that point, I never was introduced to anything like not meditation, nothing to do with energy healing. I was quite an agnostic person. I believed there's got to be something, but I never had a direction offered to me that fitted again with those values. For that freedom that I look for in company that I keep or in a job that I'm in. I was put into like I had a religious schooling, but I was usually outcasted from it because I was Christian in a Catholic place.
Right.
So there was always this disconnection from what other people's viewed God and the universe and these things as. That was in the background of my life, and my home family was just open to whatever, but they didn't have a particular belief structure. So that's where my freedom really come from, I think, was that there was nothing there. So I got to create what I wanted.
Which is amazing. I think I do as well. One of the things that I notice while doing this series is that everybody that I've talked to has the same perspective on things as I do for some reason. Your vibe attracts your tribe, I guess. And I sort of have created, if you like, my own spirituality rather than just go down a particular spiritual path. Being true to ourselves, I think my spiritual path is about being true to myself.
Yeah.
Because in the end, that's all you've got. You know, you all die alone, as somebody once said. And the point is to make the best use of your time on earth as you can, and be the best you can be at the end.
Yeah.
What does spirituality mean to you?
To me, I think the best phrase for it is being consciously human. So embracing the humanity of what we've inherited through our ancestors and through evolution, and then molding kind of that essence into a context which is a practical idealism. So being consciously human to me is eating, sleeping, drinking water, exercising, all the things to function as a healthy human being. So for me, a lot of spiritualism is to do with health, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, and becoming intimate with yourself through the process of self-discovery and curiosity, and being open to the understanding that the person that you are today is going to be a very different person, because life teaches you to adapt in different ways. So you're all being led by circumstance to an extent unconsciously, but what conscious people do is then allow those circumstances to provide meaning and lessons and development into a character or a part of their truth, hopefully to gift that back. Happiness, is something that's shared, in my opinion. You can feel contented, but the joy that you get from experiencing what it is that you bring up in who and what you are with another person, and then when that other person does it too, there's something quite magical in that realization that we are all actually connected at some deep level.
Yes, I quite agree. It is something about why we are here as human beings, as spirits having a human experience. We have to be present in our bodies. To me, and I've done meditations, as you know, done journeys and things like that. But you can't beat the experience you get actually in this body. My body's creaking at the joints, but this. I am here to experience this. A lot of people don't get that. I think you're here to ignore your body and get on and do something different. Well, I cherish and value my body, faults and all. And this is one reason why I try not to take painkillers, though I do, because the pain's telling me something. There's things like that. It's choosing to love your body the way it is, accepting it. Yeah.
I think that fundamentally overlays some of my views on appearance changing decisions or gender changing decisions, things like that. It's part of it is first asking ourselves, what part of us that we're trying to excommunicate from the self. How can I try to communicate with that part of me and learn to love it or accept it before I start making an intervention on a radical need for change or distraction from really whatever the sense of separation is that you're experiencing at that time. The idea of self and who and what we are is very different from the reality of it. And so a lot of the time our fantasies in our mind are far more attractive than the reality that we have, and people are always striving for the change to attain that expectation. And really it's a feeling that you're looking for, and you can only have that acceptance in the moment. And so I think all these little practices, whatever they are, traditionally it was always about enlightenment, the seeking of something beyond the self, but being the understanding that is actually who and what we are. But the human experience is the bit that I think is so much more fascinating. You look at pagan backgrounds, a lot of pagan religions were always in the body. It was all about fighting and sex and getting involved with one another in community. And then obviously you have some people in more yogi practices that used to sit in their own isolation or in a temple and a monk experiencing more of that outer worldliness. And so the heart, to me, and the reason why I focus so much on it, is because it's the metaphysical and the physical coming together as a harmonious awareness of that magic that is both at the same time.
So I know you've just changed the subject a little bit. I know you do Reiki.
Yes.
Yes. Where do you see Reiki fitting in to your mindset on this?
Okay, so out of I always try to strip things right back to something that's a little bit tangible at least. So we can measure that everything vibrates. We measure that everything is like made up of atoms, and that all of the atoms and everything that's made up of everything is the same stuff. Even if there is otherworldly things, it's still essence the same. So for me, how I see Reiki is that you are accessing a frequency or vibration that is hopefully it's got healing properties. It's a lighter, less dense version of a feeling that you would have, like guilt, shame, stress, which is very heavy on the body, very, so for me, I just see like everything in life, and Reiki is a perfect demonstration of this, is that metamorphosis from one state to another. And we do that every time we make choices in our lives. We do that every time we spend time doing things we love, that when we're being true to ourselves, there is this like tangible lightening. And for me, enlightenment is all of those tiny little decisions where you start to put yourself and your self-worth at the forefront, and in investing in things like Reiki and going into Qigong and these types of classes. There are you giving back your financial, like paid lieu money of energy into yourself.
Yes.
And so, everyone can do that in different ways, but obviously I have my ways that work, and you have your ways that work, and everyone else has their ways that work. And I think that's what's so lovely, is that when everyone actually really connects to that part that Reiki can bring out, that peace, that stillness, then they realize that actually if everybody was just doing what they needed, everyone would be perfect for everybody, rather than trying to fit into a box.
Yeah.
I don't have that person in my life because that person isn't showing up for themselves. So I need to make you that person, and rather than why don't you just have yourself as the person that it is that you're looking for, and it's important. Reiki is important in my opinion, because of that detachment. For that period of time that you're there, you're detached from the chaos of everything that you think and thought you were. And that perspective break gives space. And if without space, you can't grow anything. So you open that space for something else to grow, a seed that you nurture, and in time will become, maybe even a pillar of your new self, or the part of you that's always been there that you haven't seen yet. It's quite magical to witness when you get those transformations in the moment. It's really powerful.
I know I follow someone called Francistina who runs the International House of Reiki on Facebook, but I came across him years ago. He went to Japan to learn how they do it over there, and compare the two Western and Eastern models. And he became a Buddhist monk at one stage, stayed there and went into Tendai Buddhism, and has come back to the Western world to talk about what he found. And he has written that Reiki is actually your true self. So rather than saying it's an energy or whatever, when you become a Reiki person, you are working now with your true self. And all the Reiki is a spiritual development modality before it's a healing modality, really. When you do the development that Reiki gives you, it is rediscovering the you that is your true self, that was always there, that was there before you came here. Which is basically what you just said, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think if things work in so we say like a resonance, like you said, your vibe attracts your tribe. We can look at people that we've met in our lives, and they're a part of us that we can see like a great deal of in someone else. And it's ironic really, because it's like we love that part of that other person, but somehow when we have that quality in ourselves, there is a disdain for it at times. Why am I thinking about that? Why is that? Whatever. But you listen to someone else talk about it and you're interested because it's coming from that. It's because it's their truth, right? So I find that the essence of who we truly are, with all the initiations that I've had this year, has made a massive difference to me. And as it's a self-development tool for myself as much as it is an opportunity to share. Obviously, our Reiki styles are slightly different, but they, in essence, are the same thing, which is that you're clearing the illusion and patterns of behaviors, that you're not getting rid of them. You're not saying, I don't like that, let's get rid of it. It's you're letting go of the stories and the density associated with a particular judgment, because you're feeling this light, and you can't have both on a particular subject. And at a time you're making a decision, there is almost an absolutism to it. You're either identifying or not. You're either accepting or denying. That's the yin and the yang balance, I think. And I'm quite a black and white guy, and I've learned to love that about myself. Mm-hmm. At least I don't have any issues with clarity. So it's important. It's important to have space, and I think that's what it gives you at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it does. So let me sort of go through this a bit. You went to a Roman Catholic school, but you went to Roman Catholic. But when you come out of there and you get to sort of maturity, you think there has to be something else?
Yeah, there has to be something more than what I was experiencing, because I'm aware that there are other people in the world that were happy. Right, there was other people in the world that knew what they wanted from life, that knew how they could contribute to society and to their mission. So I'm like, well, if I don't have that, then and someone else has that, there's a bridge to be made somewhere. And so the literal world. So for my terms, the literal world is anything physical.
Yeah.
The literal world is not. It can't be all there is if I'm constantly experiencing an emotional one, and somehow they're completely not getting along. So my values obviously weren't being seen or represented. So I just had to take that step. So I was like, there has to just be something else, but I didn't have a clue what it was. I guess that's what faith is. You believe that the God in the sky, from a certain religious perspective, is you believe that is the representation of what God is to you. I never believed that. I never believed that. So so I was like, so whatever it is I do believe, I have never come across it yet. So it's the unknown,
this is what I was getting at, taking you back there. I was interested in where your roots lie in spirituality, because it seems that you sort of almost are the observer, participant observer. Have you come across that concept?
Yeah.
Almost as if you're a participant observer for some years, and the conclusion that you drew was that that you wanted something else. You'd taken part, you'd observed, you'd thought, but there had to be something different. So you went right down a different route. Am I right with that?
Yeah, there wasn't really a choice in it, if I were going to be honest. Okay. When you get to that point in your life, and I'm sure when people have listened to this, when you're really depressed, when you're really anxious, there's something that's like almost snaps inside you, and it is tangible. It's almost like when you pull a muscle, and it's like it's that, to me, is you opening up, like that absolute like worst low, when you have that snap point, is like that's you giving up suffering to learn. So I was going with a very dramatic approach of like, I've never experienced this on the other side physically and don't know what it looks like, so therefore death is an option, because on the other side of that's even more unknown, so at least I can start again. But on the other side is, how do I get that physical world in? Well, you had to be present, had to look for it. And I knew I've lived most of my life with suicidal tendencies, because I got bullied heavily and I never felt like I fitted in. And a lot of people have that story, but I always was alive at the end of it. I mean, some part of me deeper than my learned self knew that this is part of the empathy building to become a great healer, or this is part of the empathy building to become a empathic human being, or whatever it was. It's usually always altruistic at some level. I'm working on that rescuer archetype that I have for myself, because that's what I did. I rescued myself, and then I now I'm working on trying not to be that for other people, but instead just be that nice pillar, holding a space.
That's the thing about healers. We get drawn to the rescuer, but the actual people who are healers are the people that we work with. They're the ones that do the healings. We're just there facilitating the process for them. I think if you let your ego get in the way, then things don't work as well, do they?
No, actually, I've only really done one session since I've run my business where someone was coming to me and they said on a repetition of times, over a period of maybe even a year, that they wanted to see me, but there was always some reason why it never happened. And so it was the only time, because I don't believe in this way of doing work, but it was the only time I was like, well, maybe if I was more assertive at getting her to sit down, then maybe we could sort something out. But what happened was I just noticed that what I was more bothered about was trying to get a breakthrough rather than just allowing it to happen. And so I came back and I was like, well, that's probably the first session I've done where I've actually looked back and thought twice about it. I never think about it normally because it just happens. They leave happy and that's the end. And that person I just felt like there was a disconnect. And I think it's because I was using my ego to try to fix something rather than just be present. And again, it's a very hard skill to learn, but to only make one mistake, I'm quite proud of myself so far.
Well, it's good if you can only keep it to one, then that's amazing. But fixing people is very attractive, but it's not what we do, or it shouldn't be what we do. But unfortunately, people want to be fixed.
Yes.
So the thing is, how do we as healers get over that thing about people want to be dependent on us and they want to look up to us? I try very hard to keep humble and to keep in touch with who I am as a person and who they are as a person, rather than put myself above them. I'm just the person. I'm just the one who can facilitate the Reiki or whatever I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's a healer in our lives. When you pick up the phone to your friend when you need someone to talk to, then that is just as important. But for sure, when you're doing the Reiki, it isn't about fixing, but they fix themselves because they've decided to commit the time, and that is all that was required. Thinking about even making the step to go for the first time is usually quite a big step because people don't know what to expect. There's nervousness. Anything new is always a challenge. But they've taken all of those steps of their life to get to that point.
Yeah.
So that to me is the most important part, not the fact that I'm there. It's just about opening, again, giving an opportunity for somebody to take that step when they need it in their journey for them. And a lot of the time I only work with people once because I can't do it right the first time. And I'm a massive believer in making myself redundant, which I'm so good at. I didn't need any help with COVID for that. But I do the job once, and then it's more for me like it's an educational process, because it isn't about waiting until you get to a state where you need it. It's about allowing yourself to roll on that growth. So a cup's full, and then you're waiting for your cup to empty before you come to me, and then your cup fills back up, rather than allowing the regular to start, then actually getting a bigger container. And you start building the layers, building the depth, building the experience, and building the sensation, building the patience, and these core heart values, the compassion. I had a crap day. Yeah, I had a crap day. I have crap days. It's one of those things. Tomorrow I could have a good day. Just be open to the fact that things can change. And then you just lighten up on yourself a bit. We're all our biggest critics, because we sit in our own seat of our own head all the time. Honestly, you'd probably be shocked to know that most of the things you worry about, so does everybody else, because no one just talks about the fact that it is a worry.
That's true.
Communication is something as well that is so important if you want to be finding your voice, shall we say, standing up for yourself, knowing your boundaries. Boundaries is a key word. These are all ways of you starting the healing journey, but it's the way in which we do it which is what makes it spiritual. It's not because we're avoiding something. It's not because we're pushing someone else away, or because we're judging them as being less than us. It's because we are first fundamentally putting ourselves in positions of what make us the best us. And it's just, part of that process. It's hard, but it's important.
It's all very selfish in a way, because we have to take care of ourselves first. Otherwise we can't be any use to anybody else. And a lot of people don't get that, but self-care as a healer is the main thing. I think, because you cannot pour from an empty vessel, as the meme I use a lot says. We have to work on ourselves first.
Absolutely. And I don't know if it's the same for yourself, but I find myself naturally healing myself through the participation with other people. So I'm always like, my I guess humbleness comes in to the point where I'm not even thinking about the fact that this was a Reiki session and someone's paid me for a transactional service and blah blah blah. To me, I'm just in the moment of being grateful I've had the opportunity to deliver what I love to do for a living. That is literally it. I'm working on the whole physical world business. The fact that really, yes, you're supposed to make money as a business, that's what its function is, but staying inside that, the joy and service is what I'm doing it for. And then just allowing the scale of time to just unfold, and I'm sure it will follow. But right now, people need an opportunity. And I am the person that I wanted to be, that person to open that opportunity. If people take it, it's not down to me. It's their business. But what's my business is that I'm there and seeing if people want it.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think that's probably similar to you. That's why you've got such a wonderful centre. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not. I try. It's not about me. It's It never was. It's I had I've got I did a piece of payback setting up that centre, as you know, but it's really, the centre's there to bring healing to people, and it's not really for my benefit, although sometimes I do wonder. I've learned so much over the last 6 years. That did I actually do it for my spiritual development? That is a big question.
I believe in both. Yeah.
Can I ask you this? You may know this, but you may not. So let's sow a seed. Do you know what the next part of your spiritual journey might look like?
Yes, it's already starting to take shape. So during lockdown, I was talking with my partner, and so I went for the ayahuasca medicine a couple of years ago, and when I came back, I didn't have the traditional support. So I was quite struggling with that on a mental health level. But since that happened, I got into lockdown, and I had this feeling, and I was like, oh no, it's that feeling of going for another ceremony. So I ended up crying, obviously, because it's like, you're realizing that you're putting yourself into a position where part of you is going to die again.
Yes.
So letting whatever that part of me was like, please, not again. But I was like, well, you know what is more important to me is whether or not I can integrate both that element of my spiritual development or journey with service provision. So I decided to put a retreat on. Yeah. And I have noticed, and things that I'm starting to realize about myself now, I'm attracting the right people. Yeah. Is that I am a really good space holder. So I don't even have to participate that much when people are around me actively, and for them to feel the same as whether or not it's passive. So my retreat this weekend was a good example of that. So I was like, let's get to Costa Rica. Let's get some shamans in. Let's get a sweat lodge going. Let's get a rainforest group, and let's build this start of this community of people, on a baptism by fire, really. So for the people who are interested in that, they will find their way to me and partake in that journey. The pre-care, the aftercare, the shamans will get to build a relationship with them. That is what I think part of me is now. My spiritual journey is leading to me being as a facilitator rather than necessarily a deliverer of service for the entire time. So, and maybe that's when my podcast will start at some point. I've got the whole program written, a direct, like a whole thing kind of. I'm getting there with a book and
Yeah.
the themes, whatever, in my head, of course. The physical world stuff takes more time with me.
Yeah. I know what you mean. It's all up there. It's just getting it out onto paper or onto the keyboard that I have trouble with. Yeah.
and that it will happen in its right time. And but that's where I think what I'm going towards now is looking for my own personal stamp of self on top of what it is that I do that I'm gifted at. Yeah. I think that's kind of what I think it. So I want to do a medicine mushroom retreat. I want to find like a shaman who does mushroom ceremonies and go into like, the Viking style forests, face paint, yoga, warrior yoga with the mushrooms and being guided to connect to the earth. That's the type of stuff that I'm currently interested in.
Okay.
And breaking those boundaries with the importance of how, certain therapies, including substances like these, are medicine-based substance for healing and spiritual development, not just drug. So that education, I think, is going to be important as well, because to experience outside of the physical world what it looks like in the spirit world is something that it takes years to develop naturally. Yeah. But the impact is like 10 years psychiatric work from one ceremony. It's like it's a quick kick up the butt, and then having the right group of people around you're safe. And I think spiritualism can be very scary, very, very lonely at times, where you feel like you're the only one that's going through this. But to have a set ritualized opportunity to put you together and go, we're committed. This is where we're going, and we'll all be authentically there for you at the other side. I think that level of emotional and support and community is something I've craved all my life. And I'm hoping that I can be the person I wish I had when I was growing up, and I can be that for my kids when I have them at some point in my life. And I'm a perfectionist, but what I would love to be is just like full authentic version of myself as soon as possible. I don't mind if that doesn't look as pretty as it does now, but it will be what it will be.
Yeah. Well, if people want to work with you, Mitchell, how can they go about it? How can they contact you?
Yeah, so if you search Mitchell Wheeler AO Holistics, so A for Alpha, O for Omega, you'll find me on Facebook and my website. My website will have all of the details of what I do service-wise and a bit of my background story. My social media has posts and a community group, so you can message me through those. I'm pretty much open all the time, to be honest. So
we'll put up a link to your socials and your website. Well, thank you so much for participating, Mitchell. It's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed doing this. I hope you have too.
Yeah, I have. It's been lovely to be able to spend some time with you again.
We've come to the end of the path for today. If you'd like to support the podcast by sponsoring it, please get in touch. Or you can visit our website, www.amethystcentre.com, or our Patreon or Facebook page for Walking the Path. See you next time.